CloudCherry. This video covers off a getting started guide. If you're a new user, this is the perfect place for you to start off so that through the series, we would help you understand more about CloudCherry and how you can leverage it to start to delight your customers today. So CloudCherry is a cloud application that can help you understand your customer needs and leverage it to start to drive improvements in the products and services that you may be offering in order to not just meet your customers' expectations, but exceed and delight them. So I'd first like to talk a little bit about three key pillars of our fairly unique approach to how do we look at customers. The first is a very journey-led approach to how we think about customer experience. Every consumer goes through fairly unique experiences when they interact with you as a brand. Their journeys are very unique since every customer is different and fairly unique. Now, at one end, you have your customer, and at the other end of it is the promise that you as a brand may offer. Now, the promise that you offer as a brand may really vary, right? You could be Nike saying that, hey, if you came over and picked up a pair of Air Jordans, you'd be able to go out and slam dunk better than anyone else. It could be Puma saying that, pick up our shoes and you could go out and play like Messi. Irrespective of what the brand promise is, for a consumer who comes in and learns about a brand from different touch points, which could either be through advertising, hearing about it through a friend, he goes through a journey across a number of different touch points to get to that brand promise. Now, this journey is incredibly important because it translates into more sales, it translates into repeat purchases, it translates into word of mouth spreading. And ultimately, this becomes incredibly important. However, all of us face challenges today when we interact with large brands. Sometimes we feel like the large brands don't understand us, right? And often this is because when a large brand gets larger and larger, they start to work in different silos, and different silos which are very disconnected from actual customers. A key thing that we believe in is enabling you to really track and measure experience across that entire journey so that you're able to get a 360-degree view of what your customer's experience was, so that then, keeping this in mind, you're able to drive actions in order to drive improvements. So how do we enable you to go about doing this? It really starts off by coming in and just checking the pulse of your customers inside CloudCherry. CloudCherry gives you a quick snapshot through which you're able to understand what their overall pulse is. We help you understand this by fairly industry standard metrics such as Net Promoter Score, Customer Satisfaction CSAT, and Customer Effort Score. By looking at this at a glance, you'll be able to understand at an overall level how do your customers feel about experience with you. In addition to that, we also help you track a number of other key metrics, which may be key KPIs or key performance indicators for you as a business. And these can entirely be personalized depending on the nature of your business and what matters to your customers. So once you've been able to check the pulse of your customers and you're checking in on this frequently, you may notice that sometimes scores may go up or they may go down. Now, scores that might temporarily go down and then go back up are likely less of a worry. But in case you're starting to see a more ongoing downtrend, that could be a cause of worry, right? So this is where you would want to come in and monitor trends on a more ongoing basis so that you understand whether your performance is improving or decreasing over time. Now, you can also choose to get notified if your trends tend to either go up or go down, so that you could either recognize people who are doing the right things or quickly get notified if there's a significant downtrend that you need to worry about. Now, while you may check pulse and monitor trends, where it gets a little more interesting is when you move beyond looking at your customers at an overall aggregate and start to try to understand how different groups of your customers are interacting with your brand. Now, you may discover some interesting patterns there. You may find that millennial African Americans were having trouble interacting due to certain accessibility issues that they found. You may find that senior citizens who came in to apply for a loan application, being directed to a website, found this hard because they were used to coming in and interacting at a branch. So, what becomes important is to start to understand these journeys in the context of your customers, since their experience with you are very different depending on the products or services they consume, the touch points at which they interact, and their demographics as well. So, what we enable you to do is visualize the different customer journeys and to segment it across different groups of your customers, as well as segment the scores to understand this better, since this in itself shares fairly unique insights about underserved groups of customers who may need to have more attention. This could be groups of customers, for instance, in a certain age group or at a certain stage of the journey, or specific touch points or locations. And by looking at this, it enables you to then identify underserved groups who may be key from the perspective of overall revenue or a key business metric that you care about. And understanding this could help you then drive needle moving experience improvements, which could have significant performance and financial impact. Now, while you may have identified different groups, it's also important to understand what to prioritize. Now, the simplest way of looking at it is really understanding, look, what did my customers like the most and what did they dislike the most, right? And this really looking at average scores, which may come in either from surveys or from analysis of open text, which may either come in from verbatim or social media or chat transcripts or any of our 17 different channels through which we have the ability to listen across the journey. Now, while looking at like and dislike is often a simple way of understanding what is the most important, sometimes what users like or dislike the most may not always offer the right insight. So, to give you an example, if you went over to a restaurant and people asked you to rate food, staff service, ambience, and time taken for food to show up, you may end up rating them, like you may rate food high, you may rate ambience low, right? It's possible that although you rated ambience low, it may not be the most important to you, right? Now, how do you understand not just where customers may have rated you low, but also what is most important for them? In order to understand this and understand what is most important from the context of overall experience, you could look at our impact analysis charts. These help you understand at an overall level, not just in the context of how people have rated you, but what is most important for them, giving you clear, actionable indications about what you want to prioritize and specific recommended goals around what you need to fix and what a recommended goal target would be for you to work on driving improvements. So, this gives you, without needing to be a data scientist or a data analyst, a very simple, actionable insight on what you need to focus on and what you need to act upon, as well as what impact it would have if you actually worked on it. Now, the next step really is once you've got a prioritized action and a goal recommendation, the next step really is getting buy-in inside the organization so that you're able to collaborate with other groups to help them understand what needs to be done and then to actually action this so that it can start to benefit your customers. Now, while you start to action it, it's important to also track impact because while you take action, you also want to know, did your work actually have an impact? So there's a couple of ways you could do this with CloudCherry. So the simplest way is really just to track a period over period comparison. So an example here is you've gotten an insight, right, which indicates that you've looked at data in the month of May, and looks like certain scores went down, and customers were recommending that you worked on improving something in your branch or in one of your stores. Now, let's imagine you went ahead and made those changes. What you would want to do is to then make the changes and then compare your results of May with the results in June post having made the change to understand. Let's look at before and after and see, hey, did the scores go up? So, this is often a very simple way to look at pre versus post to know whether the change actually had an impact or not. Now, there are sometimes situations where, in order for you to act on a recommendation, it requires a more significant investment. So, when you're looking at a more strategic decision that you need to take, which has broader impact, it may not be possible to just roll it out as quickly and compare pre versus post period over period. In this case, you have the option within CloudCherry of being able to run out what's called a A/B test or a split test, where you may choose to identify a test location. And as an example, you may decide that in one branch or in one store, or for a certain group of users who come into the website, you would offer them an improved experience. And then you would track and measure this to see whether working on this actually had an impact and scores improved. So CloudCherry enables you to track this easily and enables you to understand whether over a period of time, improvements that you put into place in one place actually had an impact, so that you could then make a decision on whether to go ahead and make a more strategic investment about rolling this out across your entire organization. So through this enables you to run the end-to-end cycle of coming in, periodically checking the pulse of your customers. We would recommend doing this daily. Monitoring trends on a periodic basis. We would recommend tracking notifications so that you get alerted if there's a significant downtrend or an uptrend. Third, going on to understand different segments of your customers, which would help you see if there are any underserved groups who need attention. And then prioritizing action so that you're able to focus on what is the most important. And then actually tracking impact, which would help you then see whether the changes that you're working on actually move the needle for your customers as well as for your business. So this covers off a very brief a documentation overview of CloudCherry as a part of our Getting Started series. In the next series of videos, we'll dive into the product so we can walk you through how you could use our product in order to achieve this and then drive outcomes that can delight your customers.